sports. I love going to college football games are a lot of fun. Big Ohio State fan, go Bucks. I do that with my mom, which is kind of unusual. It's my mom and I who go to the games. My brother and my dad don't, which is funny. I love making jewelry. I'll take classes on darn near anything. I've taken it on knife skills, and I do not mean like chop, ninja skills, but more like cooking knife skills. I really like to try new things. I love trying new restaurants, different foods, traveling. So a lot of times when I travel for work, if I'm going to a place I haven't been before, I'll add a couple of days and explore the city. So I just like learning new things, meeting new people. My mother has bipolar disorder, so growing up in my house, I guess I always knew, well, I didn't know how different it was until you sort of start comparing notes with your friends. If you go to somebody else's house after school and their mom is very different from your mom. Things are really quiet at their house, or maybe things are not as organized as they are at your own house. It's not as though my mother was militant about her organization, but she definitely had a way she liked things to be done. Or when very small things didn't work well for her, she'd just get really furious. And sometimes it would be interesting because she'd overreact to some things and then underreact to other things. Like it could be a complete overreaction to a spilled juice or something like that. But then I remember one time a total underreaction when there was smoke coming from behind the dryer and she kind of shut down and didn't know what to do next. So I was the one who called the fire department. It would be just sort of real extremes. And for her, again, she'd go with that high energy, furious kind of go for a long time with no sleep and kind of hit this wall of exhaustion and then crash and then just sleep for days and days. So it would kind of be a presence and then an absence at times. My parents did a great job of talking to my brother and me about what that meant, and mommy's not angry at you, this isn't anything you did. And somehow I think their willingness to talk to us about that made it okay, and my brother and I never took that guilt on. I don't think we ever felt as little kids that we could fix this. But we definitely knew something was different. I think it's given me a great deal of patience with unusual behavior. I think we kind of get the giggles about it in the family. We have a high tolerance for kind of quirkiness or unusual responses to things. It takes a lot to get folks in my family really riled up because we just sort of have a patience and understanding that maybe what you're seeing in that person is not something they can control in this moment, and that's okay. I think that's part of it. I think it's given me patience and understanding, a calm, a compassion. I always was the kid who made sure that the child who got chosen last for games, I'm like, come be on my team kind of thing. I was never the team captain. I wasn't particularly coordinated, but I was always a person who would include things, defend the kid who's getting picked on the playground. And I think, too, having a younger brother who had some challenges, too, when he was little, kind of looking out for him, too. What's been important support for me has always been my dad, but also my mom. And very truthfully, my mom and my dad as a team are really dynamic. They're very different in their personalities. My father's really soft-spoken, and my mom is a little more kind of, I don't know, I think part of that would sometimes be fueled by symptoms is her kind of energy, but she generally is kind of introverted as well. And my brother and I are kind of similar. We're the blabby kids. Sometimes my parents look at each other and say, where did these two chatty people come from? But I think my brother and I are both very open about it, and I think my parents fostered that in us, is this talk about it. Don't be ashamed of this. Ask the question. If there's something you don't understand about why mom is having a day like this, ask her and she'll tell you. My favorite thing about family is being there for the little things, for birthdays and the random cookouts and the holidays and things. So that family's super important to me, and kind of being together and getting that kind of experience and support that you get informally just by being a part of everyday things. The little stuff, I think, is really important. I think that's what's made us all closer. And then it also allows us to kind of keep an eye out for each other. And I don't mean me saying, oh, you're having a manic moment. Not like that at all. But we all support each other. So they look out for me, I look out for them, and we're kind of a team operation. Figuring out how to have that relationship, that parent-child relationship without becoming the parent yourself, I think is kind of figuring out what that role is. And again, sort of like what we've done, and again, it's not going to be for everybody, but that kind of team approach. I'm walking beside. I'm not necessarily pulling her along to where she doesn't want to go, and she's not doing the same with me. We're adults and we're figuring out how to be helpful to each other. So I don't want to reach in and do things I shouldn't. And sometimes I think I probably do because I worry and I fret at times, but I try and catch myself and stop myself from doing that, because that's not my role. And that's not what my mom's asking of me. It's like she's a really dear friend to me, but it's also, but she's still my parent. I still go to her and ask her questions like, what advice do you give? And I love sitting with my parents and talking about what it was like for them in the past and growing up and how they met and all those things, just kind of learning about their history as a complete person, not just someone who's defined by this one thing. And that's what I always think about with my mom is I never say she is bipolar, she has bipolar. She's a whole lot of other things instead of just that. It's an interesting part. It certainly has had an impact on a lot of parts of her life, but it's not all of it. And same thing, for my dad, it's not, he's got all this other life too. I would say my parents he's not a caretaker for her. She's not a caretaker for him. They're a team, and they just kind of make it work. Because I think that when people get to know someone, a person, whether they have a mental health condition or not, when you get to know them and you peel away some of the layers and get to know who they are, it's just there's so much more to them than that condition. Like one of the words of wisdom that somebody shared with me at one time was, it was a woman that I work with through NAMI, and she had met a pastor. And one of the things he said is, I've decided to kind of change the way I do introduce myself to people. Instead of saying, hi, my name is Pastor such and such, what do you do for a living? He always says, hi, my name is Pastor such and such, and how do you like to spend your time? And that has stuck with me, because I think about, for people who have a mental health condition, sometimes it makes it so maybe they can't hold a steady job, or there's so many things they feel like, and I talk to so many people about this, they think about all the things they can't do. And they rarely get reminded of the things they can do. And when you introduce yourself and say to somebody, how do you, hi, I'm Suzanne. I really love to go to Ohio State football games and make jewelry and cook. What do you like to spend your time doing? Everyone can answer that question. That's the thing. We miss so many people because we don't even try to get to know them. And I think that's a huge part of this. For me, I have met some of the most amazing, courageous, strong individuals who've had to deal with some really tough situations. And people write them off because they hear, oh, you've got schizophrenia, or you've spent time in jail or prison and all this stuff, and they don't take any time to get to know who that person is and all that they bring to the table and the richness of it and just amazing gifts. And they don't take the time because they don't view them as a person, they view them as a particular illness or condition. But I think as individuals, we just get afraid to ask questions or get to know or just be welcoming and kind and say hello, please, and thank you. That'd be nice. But I think it's just spending a little bit of time and getting to know the people and not being scared of it. Because I know when I do presentations, some of my favorite audiences are the toughest crowds. Like sometimes it'll be law enforcement or corrections officers who are really skeptical about, who is this Susie social work and what does she have to say to us? And I just sort of tell my family story. I'll tell some silly stories, I'll tell some serious stories, but just to kind of give it perspective and say, yeah, I am the face of mental illness and mental health conditions. I'm the daughter of someone who has this, but and I stand proud to say that, and that people in my family they're amazing. And if you don't get to know them just because you define them by the illness, you're a loss.